My name is Binita, and I'm the Senior External Relations Officer / Communication Specialist. And after listening to Matt, I think jobs like mine will be obsolete in few years. But before that, here I go. So I'm sure you must have heard of Asian Development Bank. It's a multilateral development bank that works in Asia Pacific region. And in Nepal, we've been working with the government of Nepal in infrastructure. We're supporting the government of Nepal in building infrastructure and promoting education, gender and social inclusion and environmental safeguards. And few years ago, we were working on Kathmandu wastewater management project in Kathmandu, and we faced a unique situation. So for the first time ever in ADB's history, we had to build that wastewater system inside a World Heritage Site, Patan Darbar Square, and we had not done that before. So if it had been any other place, they could have been digging and excavation and laying of pipes and sewer lines, business as usual. But this was an ancient heritage site, and for those of you who visited Kathmandu, it's not like an ancient heritage site separate from other areas. This is a bustling town, bustling place where communities live. They've been living there for hundreds of years. There's business happening, there's festivals happening. So we had to be really careful. And so ADB, for the first time in Nepal, worked with the government of Nepal to prepare a heritage impact assessment. I'm not going to talk about heritage impact assessment because I'm not an expert in that, but we're going to show you a video that shows how this heritage impact assessment as a tool helped preserve ancient artifacts and safeguard cultural heritage. So proper planning and implementation there can be a win-win solutions for conservation and development with proper planning. So we hope this video will encourage you to visit Patan Darbar Square. And while you were there, just remember that if it had not been for the wastewater project site, there would be flooding during monsoon. But most importantly, just remember that while the wastewater management project was being implemented, no damage was done to the heritage site, and people were able to continue with their festivals and all that as usual. So this is, as tourism professional, tourism stalwarts here, you are a good audience, because we want you to have this conversation whenever you see some construction work or some infrastructure work being done in ancient sites. You can ask the question like, have you done your heritage impact assessment? What are you doing to preserve this monument for future generations? So please enjoy the video. Thank you.
In the overall mosaic that represents Nepal to the world, the Patan Darbar Square would be an integral part of that mosaic, because there is no other place on earth like the Patan Darbar Square. The city is amazingly historical, it is amazingly cultural, but then we also have to understand modernity. So the city has grown, the population has grown. So in that context, development aspirations are also very high.
यो दरबार हेरिटेज साइटमा पानी चाहिँ धेरै आउने कारणले पुलचोक लगनखेल र पब्लिकको घरहरूबाट सब यतै पानी छोड्दिने, त्यो कारणले गर्दा सबैले प्रब्लम फेस गर्नु परेको थियो, साह्रै गाह्रो थियो.
One particular scheme that we undertook was to lay sewer pipe and water supply pipe in the Patan Darbar Square, which is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so it was very important to reduce waterlogging duration and possible contamination.
The question is, how do we fit a modern wastewater system into an ancient city?
The project during the design carried out heritage impact assessment to ensure that we avoid any type of damages to the archaeological remains.
For preparing this, the inventory of all the heritage sites were recorded. Not only heritage sites, the old and vulnerable buildings in which the communities were living were also recorded. and then also recorded where the intangible part of the heritage, that is the music, the festivals, the procession for cremating dead bodies. There are certain defined route used by the communities. So all these were recorded, and based on that, we prepared how this could be mitigated or community could be facilitated in continuing with their cultural, socio-cultural practices.
We made extensive consultations with the community, archaeological experts, engineers, structural experts. Also, we involved the policymakers to obtain buy-in from the communities as well as all the key stakeholders.
Since this is the old heritage site, we must be very, very cautious that no damage at all to the heritage site. The local communities are very much concerned. This is the first such project. This is the first heritage impact assessment was done. We did everything in accordance with ADB's requirement.
Actually, the project sewer rehabilitation in Core City area of Zilalipur Metropolitan City, which is in terms of construction work is totally different than the normal ones, because we have to lay the pipe of different sizes, starting from 500 mm to 1,400 mm diameter, where the old houses of even more than 200 to 200 years old houses, just adjacent of the pipe alignment.
This is being a World Heritage Site, so we wanted to know pre-hand what's there. In the line of the proposed sewer line, where we are going to propose what's there. So we all use these three techniques, the GPRS, the electroresistivity, and the sound waves. So all these give us some results.
Based on these three findings, on these three explorations, we overlay them and we did the analysis, and then we pinpointed out.
माथिको चाहिँ जब खन्दै गए अनि त्यहाँबाट चक्रहरू यो बुद्धिस्ट त्योहरू देख्न थाले, साइनहरू देख्न थाले, जस्तो यो चाहिँ निश्चितकालीन हो भन्ने चाहिँ कुरा भयो। अनि त्यहाँ स्टडीको लागि चाहिँ बोलाइयो हैन, अनि अब यो इम्पोर्टेन्सहरू पाइयो भन्ने कुरा भयो। अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ अब देश एउटा एक्साइट त भइहाल्छ।
As you know, this project is under the UNESCO Heritage Site, so we have to maintain the high standard of the every service and the facility. Once this project is completed, it will address the flooding problem of the city core of Patan.
Whatever we have done here in Patan Darbar Square, this could be one of the examples for others as well. My suggestion to them is, in the heritage site, whatever work you are going to do, take expertise advice as and when required.
This project has actually taught us that by undertaking proper identification of risk and mitigation measure at the planning stage and ensuring strict compliance, we could actually deliver development in this very highly sensitive area, while at the same time conserving the cultural heritage. So moving forward, we are making effort to institutionalize what we have learned from this project and disseminate the knowledge.
So having guidelines or having a way of doing these things is very helpful, because these structures or these monuments that you see are irreplaceable.
Sorry about that. Yeah. All right. So that was an amazing intervention that ADB did in Patan. And if anybody has not been to Patan, I highly recommend that you do it. It's a really amazing royal court, in Kathmandu. So now I'll be talking for the last, if you could endure with me for another 5-10 minutes, I'll just be talking about another intervention that is being currently going on from ADB, and that's happening in Sudur Pachim, which is the far west of Nepal. And there, a small study is happening where we're trying to use tourism as a vehicle for economic growth in that area. So what are we talking about? We're talking about an area, you can see Pokhara out there, Kathmandu is just on the east, and Sudur Pachim is that little vertical thing that I've drawn. And if you just take a relation from this, from Kathmandu, it's about a 70-minute flight to Sudur Pachim. And from Delhi, it's only 328 kilometers, where 32 million people live, right? And just south of Sudur Pachim is Uttar Pradesh with 240 million people, right? So massive potential, if you think about it. And how do we now take that, use what we learned about the Indian traveler, and yet put them out there is the whole idea, right? Of actually doing this study and trying to see if sustainable tourism could be the way forward. So in relation, I just showed you a little bit about Everest. That's where Everest would be. The Ganges River is really important out here, and Mount Kailash is very important, which is in Tibet, because that is the pilgrimage route that was taken by sages a long time ago. So it falls within that area of Sudur Pachim. All right, so the background of this, I'll just go through the process a little bit so that you understand what was going on. Basically, a request came from the government saying they'd like to get a study done so they could actually see if there are any interventions that can happen in the Sudur Pachim area. So I'm part of an expert team. I'm actually not technically part of ADB. I'm a tour operator actually, and I work in sustainable tourism in many different countries. So I'm part of the strategies team out there. There's a big team with inclusion experts, infrastructure experts, migration experts, because that's also part of sustainability itineraries. Then you are thinking about how you put in environment and cultural preservation within the outdoor thing, yeah, within the pilgrimage. How do you get everything with sustainability at the core? So you're really focusing on that. Make it inclusive so that you're talking with marginalized groups. There's a huge disparity between gender in this part of Nepal, also in the whole of Nepal. So we need to really work on inclusivity from that perspective, and focus on the local and authentic. Because every time you go into certain of these areas in Nepal, people always say, what's good? And say, everything is organic. But then you need to deliver that promise over and over and over again. And if you do that, that actually develops into something sustainable. And like we heard the whole day today, experiential. Make it much, much more experiential. So everything is about experience. The food, the meeting the people, doing the experience, doing the outdoor activity, everything is an experience. So that is the sort of sustainability design. And the focus, never wavering, is going to be untouched, organic and authentic. Still a draft, by the way. So please don't take it and blow it up. So the strategic initiatives within that, of course, that's where the bankable projects eventually will start coming, is that we need to improve roads. We need to improve air and communications connectivity. Because again, with the Indians, the internet is crucial. So we need it all the way, right? But even when we're doing the road development, we're thinking of ideas like making scenic roads, for example. Because some parts of the road are incredibly scenic. I've been into Norway where they've got declared heritage roads, scenic roads, which are narrower because you need to drive slowly, watch, stop, take photographs, right? They're not wide roads just to connect A and B. And those things can be very, very productive for us. And then, of course, the branding, doing a regional DMO, which is really strong. That requires collaborations. Collaborations are key. So I was already talking with Matt, maybe SEO, talking with, the Indian operators here to talk about how do we actually collaborate to actually make that happen. So there's so many things that are to do with collaborations, right? And without collaborations, nothing is going to happen. Even one of the ideas that we're having, that we're toying around, is actually Nepal has already initiated with Forums Under Horizon, they've started making climate lodges. So doing a climate lodge network, right, within the area where people can go with the same quality, but actually also brings the market, but also works with sustainability, is one of the ideas that we are actually taking forward. Of course, there's a huge outward migration in that area, so local skill development is really required to actually keep that, the locals in the area so they get more gainful employment. So local skills development is important. Unwavering focus on sustainability is something that I put it out there. And some initiatives that make this place stand out. So you need a few key products that will be like, wow, right? I've never seen that. Like the scenic roads, for example. It'll be the only one in Nepal in many ways. So that sort of stuff. And then creating an enabling environment from the government side for sustainability to thrive, whether that means through the federal government or through the provincial government. So here's a pitch for you. We're all experts in this room, and I actually came here to actually get a discussion out. Unfortunately, we'll not have a discussion right now. But what I'm really looking for is to look at the demand, opportunities, and constraints of actually developing new destinations, especially with sustainability in mind, still keeping sure that we understand the market's requirements. And so in the room, we've got private sector operators, accommodation providers, potential investors. We had one who already left, Dolma, and destination developers, associations, local, international, all the associations that are possible, and individual experts, right? So I'm looking for informal consultation. And so here's my pitch. I will chat with you over a sundowner today. Yeah. So if you can be at the foyer at 5:30, I've got 2 vans waiting to take you to Lakeside, and we'll have a drink and we'll have a discussion. But you have to be ready to come for a discussion and not just for the drink. That's one thing. One thing that's important, right? So if you're down there at the foyer at 5:30, I've got 2 vans waiting, and we'll go and have a discussion for about an hour, have a drink, and just enjoy the sunset over the lake. And for the rest of you who don't have the time, that's my number. And my email. So if you have anything to talk to me about, or now or in the future, that's me. Thanks. That's it from me.